I'm the Angry Spork. While Year of the Crossover has featured villains from different universes teaming up, seldom do they get top billing, as is the case for what we begin today. I'm taking issue with Joker Mask, where the clown prince of crime encounters a strange artifact made famous by a 1994 Jim Carrey movie. While the film was primarily a comedy that featured Tex Avery-style sight gags and cartoonish visuals, the comic it's based on saw more than just Stanley Ipkiss donning the mask, and was significantly darker and bloodier. More or less a lot less kid-friendly than either the cartoon starring Rob Paulsen or Cameron Diaz in a sparkling cocktail dress. In a story by Henry Gilroy and Ronnie Del Carmen, with art by Ramon F. Box, Howard M. Shum, and Dave McCaig, let's see if this meeting of madness is smokin', or if it'll make me plead, somebody stop me! Trust me, it was better I ripped off that Band-Aid sooner than later. The first issue's cover sees the Joker proudly holding up the wood-carved face as Harley Quinn looks at him lovingly, and behind them both is an image of Big Head, what his name was in Dark Horse Comics, seemingly snickering into his hand. And with the very first panel, the comic asks much of our willing suspension of disbelief, as it's Kids' Night at the Gotham City Art Museum. What children are eager to go to a museum in the hours before their bedtime? Heck, even Joker's hankering to blow the place up. Though it's just him, bomb prepper Harley, and a henchman that told the rest of the gang to go to a mausoleum. You are the last time I hire a wannabe football player.
Hey, I could have gone pro.
I once scored 4 touchdowns in a single game for Pocahontas.
But considering you're working for an abusive, psychotic gangster that routinely faces off against a vigilante ninja, you're probably a lot safer. Joker's M.O., apparently, is to blow up the museum because of the blasphemous, frowning clown masks on display. And he's serious since he chastises Harley for finding them amusing. It's wrong on so many levels, and trying way too hard to be funny. As opposed to wrong, unfunny things that just don't try at all. So, I guess Netflix will be greenlighting a show about those masks soon enough. Anyway, Joker's follow-up is to set off the bombs while Gotham's children are in attendance, and his one goon, Snuck, grabs a wooden mask, but J-Man tells him this isn't a robbery. His blood pressure doesn't fare much better when he discovers Harley botched the bombs, failing to add the detonators because they looked cuter without them. Snuck apparently triggered the alarm, so citizens begin evacuating as Gotham PD arrive. Real quick, too. But the real insult is that there isn't a SWAT team, which makes the clown believe he's lost his touch. That's kind of a leap, isn't it? They've been pretty stealthy up to now, so no one outside the museum knows that it's the Joker after the alarm tripped. So, no laughing gas, no chattering attack teeth. There's nothing to let them know that the clown is involved at all, so why would they make those kind of preparations? Snuck continues to be not so helpful, claiming they can salvage the night by looting the place, and Joker literally shoves his supposed gains back in his face. One wacky whirlwind later, Snuck has become a bald, green-headed, yellow-suited cartoon dynamo, grabbing various items and materializing a bomb so they can still blast the place to smithereens. And I must say, Joker and Harl have pretty subdued reactions to all this. Sure, they deal with outrageous situations, even causing them, but this is still something straight out of Looney Tunes for these people. I figured their reactions would be significantly more perplexed. When the cops burst in, including Harvey Bullock and Renee Montoya, Mask Snuck takes appropriate measures, dressing Harley like a cheerleader, donning a football uniform, and after taking a few bullets to no effect, throws his bomb at the officers. Quinn gives a crazy accurate hypothesis on how the mask brings out a superpowered version of the wearer's pent-up side, in part for comedy, maybe part because she's a psychologist, but Joker only cares that the mask works, not the hows. He goes along with Snuck's idea for a partnership, and options to take a photo to commemorate the occasion, But first, Snuck will have to take off that mask. So his ma will recognize him. This leaves him vulnerable to a bullet from the camera that's actually a gun, and Joker tosses him and a large artifact out the window. This is exactly why I don't let myself get in front of any camera for any reason. Wait a minute. Batman arrives on the scene, saving the goon from falling, but not from dying. In the museum, Joker is ecstatic at the power the mask could grant him, but Harley is worried about losing her man. He promises he'll never change and kisses her. Woo! But they're interrupted by, I know who it is, uninvited company. And honey, I can't very well greet company without my best face on. As Bats tells the police to hightail it, 'cause I guess Snuck's bomb must have been extra cartoony to leave them alive, if battered, Joker has changed into, a yellow suit, with his face more or less the same, only green. And he needs to re-red his lips. Also, unlike other mask bearers, Mr. J doesn't go bald. That's right. Not even magic can stop those follicles. Joker's hair is just that awesome. Though Batman gets a couple of hits in, Joker retaliates with a laugh. Literally. And sheer brute force to boot. Harley, still in her cheerleader garb, though without the J she had before, plays the role for all it's worth as her bow dominates the fight. Badly injured, Batman makes his way to the Batmobile, but he's chased by a flying saucer crashing through the museum.
Harley, you're gonna have to drive, 'cause I got shotgun.
Looks more like a sci-fi ray gun to me, but let's split the difference and say space shotgun. They follow him onto a bridge, blasting bats, until his car careens into the river. Laughing all the way, Joker declares this new spontaneous form, that Harl seems to have a liking to, is here to stay as the comic ends. Where is your Geico now? The cover for issue 2 sees Joker and Big Head armed and apparently dressed in J-Man's classic purple duds, though you can hardly tell since they're being caressed by a pair of scantily clad, white-haired women, with a displeased Quinn raising an eyebrow towards Greenie. The comic begins with Harleen in an abandoned candy warehouse, watching and berating Access Gotham anchor Jessica Platinum, who frequently refers to the new Joker as Big Head, whose crime spree is on day 3. This includes robbing a bank and bombing Arkham Asylum, 'cause old time's sake. Batman, however, hasn't been seen since his car crashed into the river. In Commissioner Gordon's office, he's introducing Renee and Bullock to Lieutenant Kellaway of Edge City, whose experience with Big Head will prove useful, even though they never could stop him, only contain him. Gordon mentions that the green-faced metahuman has been acting a lot like the Joker, so the two must be working together. Kellaway realizes that the clown is wearing the mask, but decides to keep that to himself because it'll better help get the artifact off the streets. Somehow, a familiar pointy-eared shadow appears among the officers, but it's Big Head, Joker, Jokehead, Big Joke, whatever. After taking several bullets and criticizing the officers' use of guns, Joker admits he could take them out, but then his antics would be all the more dull, and figures he shouldn't have taken out Batman. He wedgies Bullock and opens a window.
Like Harvey's underwear, the time has come for me to once more creep back into the shadows.
Okay, that's just funny right there. He jumps out, only to land on a car in the street, and Gordon is convinced that Big Head is the Joker. Well, so much for Kellaway keeping that to himself. I'm sure there'll be a big payoff for his withholding information later. Yeah. As for the actual Batman, he managed to make it to his cave, but with multiple contusions, cracked ribs, and Alfred worrying that he may not wake up. Joker has different problems. Tossing his latest safe into a pile of others, he notes how dull robbery has become. No one's trying to stop him, especially with the Bat dead, and it was more difficult to get a laugh. Harley suggests they relax without the mask, but J-Man's adamant that it stays on. Access Gotham doesn't help, calling him Big Head because they don't recognize the clown. It doesn't take long at all before they're at the studio, which is at the top of the building with the show's name on it. Which doesn't seem right to me. A building that tall needs to have other stuff going on than just one show. But I could be wrong, whatever. After tossing someone from the top floor, they find Jessica Platinum, who's going to help them acquaint the city with Joker's new look. On live TV, he confirms who he is, conveniently watched in the Batcave and GCPD. Kellaway notes that the cat's out of the bag, but wasn't it already when Gordon said he was convinced that Big Head was the Joker? But hey, I guess now it's out of the bag for a lot more people. Realizing television has always been his best ally, Joker and camera gal Harley are taking their antics to the streets.
Oh, and Jessica, if you bump me off the air, I'll be back to bump you off.
I'm pretty sure this is how the Big Bang Theory lasted 12 seasons. From spanking Catwoman, and getting rightfully throttled for it, to blowing up a mime, from dropping a safe on a doomsday sayer to blowing up an attorney's office and schools for the deaf and blind, Harley struggles to keep up with her newly hyperactive love, who decides explosions are how he really rakes in the ratings. After berating Harley for wanting to rest her weary feet, a van with inflammatory graffiti passes by, and the crooks give chase. The cops watch from above, as it's all part of a plan in conjunction with the National Guard, but Kellaway hasn't much faith in it, other than how badly it'll end. Gordon suspects that the out-of-towner is withholding information, probably because he hasn't really done anything else in the story so far. Joker and Quinn come upon a tank and several officers, and the latter makes a run for it. Immobilizing foam, electrified netting, even a point-blank blast from the tank do little to slow Joker down, especially when he uses a comically large six-shooter to destroy the weapon and take a shot at Gordon, Bullock, and Montoya observing from the roof.
So much for the SWAT team.
First you wanted the SWAT team, now the SWAT team's not good enough for you. You've changed, man. You used to be cool. You used to be about the music. Wait a minute. Kellaway, managing to sneak up on the Joker, pleads for him to hand over the mask or he'll just be the latest victim in its continued path of destruction. Unfortunately for the cop, that's just Joker's style, so he shoves him aside and grouses at Harley for abandoning her camera duties. Then says poo like boo, which seems really weird if it's not a typo. Maybe it's something Big Head would say, but not something Joker would. After threatening more of the same to anyone that tries to stop him, Alfred shuts off the TV, but a newly awakened Bruce would prefer to keep watching. Look, Bruce, I was the same way when The Simpsons stopped being funny. I was just watching out of habit, but eventually I realized it wasn't entertaining anymore, so I just had to quit cold turkey. Upon discovering that his ratings have dominated 100% of the market, and that all the station's affiliates want his show, Joker decides it's time for some changes. Firstly, no more Harley calling him Puddin', which just feels wrong. They'll also be on 24/7 for a global audience, as well as introducing two new assistants, the Jokettes, Nip and Tuck, who we saw on the cover. He just got the news about his growing audience, so did he have these women waiting for a moment like this, or were they conjured by mask magic? Not sure about the rules there. Anyway, not to let Quinn feel totally left out, Joker assigns her fan mail duty and leaves to plan future programming. Alone, Harley is angry at being replaced and guilty that she convinced her boyfriend to put on the mask, which doesn't sound right since Snuck's use of the artifact seemed to intrigue Joker well enough. Anyway, she decides that there's only one person who can help her get her man back, and that someone is Poison Ivy, who's totally up for a you scratch my back deal. Well, in Pam's case, it would be more like Prune. Tune in next week to see how useful the Mistress of Foliage proves to be, how Batman plans to retaliate, and if Kellaway ever does anything useful at all. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues. Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. taking issue with Joker mask. Previously, a presumed dead Batman recuperated while a mask-powered Joker ran roughshod through Gotham. Deciding to televise his rampage, he made short work of the best law enforcement could throw at him. After she's replaced with a pair of scantily clad co-stars, Harley Quinn decides she wants the old Joker back, and turns to her old pal Poison Ivy for help. The cover for issue 3 features the green-thumbed woman ensnaring Joker and Big Head. But no worries, cause hedge clippers! We begin with the revelation that Access Gotham has been rebranded, in name and building, as Access Joker. Banned in 5 states. They introduce their new segment, Who Wants to Be a Smilin' Heir? And their first captive contestant is Bob Eisenstein of the IRS, who tried to get Joker locked up for tax evasion 3 years ago. Considering everything else the guy has done, this seems like pretty small potatoes. What steady job did Joker have at the time that meant he'd need to be doing taxes at all? Bob is asked how many people were killed by a bomb Joker planted the previous September. 9, 17, a chicken, or 28. He's encouraged to answer at gunpoint, and the taxman just straight up says Joker isn't funny. You think a lame game show parody where you threaten an innocent person is gonna make people laugh? He's right. I bet actual reality shows have tried that before already. Anyway, faced with either being shot or giving an uncertain answer, Bob responds that 9 people died. Turns out Batman saved all the people, but the chicken didn't make it. So, out the window with the taxman. Fortunately, the police prepared a safety mat that saves his life, and also somehow unties him, and prevents injury that'd likely occur from falling from that high while being tied to a chair. How lucky! Joker retaliates by firing a couple missiles at the cops, and at a rival channel's copter for allegedly horning in on his ratings. The only solace that Kellaway and the GCPD can take away is that the lunatic is contained. In Ivy's greenhouse, Harley continues to bemoan what her bombastic boyfriend has become. Fortunately, Pam's whipped up a perfume sprayer full of a glowing red liquid she's certain will help remove the mask. In exchange, Harl's gonna crash with Pam for safety, while Mr. J has some alone time. Don't fall for it, Harley! She just wants an excuse to drag you to her 3-hour one-woman show at the community theater. Take your chances with a superpowered lunatic! Bruce, meanwhile, has been researching the mask, figuring the same as Harley that it grants magical powers and feeds off the subconscious of the wearer, while bringing their uninhibited desires to the fore. The thing is, Joker doesn't have any inhibitions, and is now unstoppable. There have been brief periods where Big Head disappeared, but Wayne figures the wearers went insane from using the mask. Since Joker's already nuts, bats will have to get a lot better a lot quicker. Alfred, bring me a senzu! Sir, I'm afraid those don't exist. Those are just in a cartoon. All right, bring me a bat senzu! Jokerhead isn't exactly thrilled at the news that his ratings are dropping, despite having Nip and Tuck at his side and throwing someone from the IRS out a window. And despite thinking that they were the key to his success before, he now complains that Gotham only seems to care about explosions. Harley returns, which is good news for the unopened mail, and of course Pamela Isley isn't far behind, whom Joker calls Green Peace, with an IE, which I think is pretty clever. It takes some waterworks on Quinn's part, but Mr. J agrees that the pair can have a gardening spot on the show, and then he finds Nip and Tuck either unconscious or dead, maybe the latter since a plant is protruding from one's mouth. But he doesn't exactly grieve since he goes straight back to Jessica to plan something big to make up for the inevitable dullness Ivy and Harley will bring with their airtime. The spot begins with Ivy feeding a plant with a quick growth formula, then decrying the actions of logging and oil companies. Since those are advertisers, Joker puts a stop to the segment, only to be ensnared by vines and sprayed with the herbal tonic she and Harley cooked up, making Joker her obedient servant. just before they throw up their technical difficulties card. As Batman prepares for when Pamela's actions eventually backfire, Jim Gordon thinks this might actually give them a break, since Ivy isn't quite as crazy as the clown, and Calloway continues to be useless, not wanting to share any ideas he might have. At this point, I think the lieutenant here could be legitimately arrested for obstruction of justice. This is the third crossover I've reviewed this year where at least one potentially useful character does all of Jack's squat. Back at the Access Joker offices, its usurper is none too pleased with his new indentured servitude, but Harley insists it's for his own good in removing the mask, a prospect most frightening to him. Ivy sips some wine and promises she'll get to that eventually. First, she has him taking out a logging company and an oil refinery in fashions most ironic, all for the good of the environment. Because, all that burning oil from that explosion is clearly great for Mother Earth, right, Pammy? She's supposed to be a scientist, right? Anyway, Batman has seen all he can stands and can't stands no more, and he somehow gets word to Jim Gordon he's alive. The commish also found out that the currently AWOL Calloway has been holding out on them regarding the mask. So I guess it's only fair that Gordon not explain how he got that information. Oi. Joker has rickshawed Pam and Harley back to the studio just as Calloway gets the drop on them, threatening the plant lady with a shotgun until she orders the mask off. But once told that he's a cop and won't shoot, he's immediately incapacitated like a sack of potatoes that are bad at their job. His life on the line, the lieutenant suggests Ivy wear the mask, an idea she doesn't hesitate to go for as she orders Joker to fork it over. He finally removes it, though oddly still with the jagged-style dialogue bubble as when he was wearing it. And he notes that now he's no longer susceptible to her mind control, slapping her aside as he washes the mask off with a seltzer bottle he'd probably always have without the use of magic powers, because he's the Joker. After reapplying the mask as Calloway sneaks away, Joker slaps Ivy again, after turning his hand into stone? An odd-looking anvil? Difficult to tell, but it's pretty solid. He then changes it to a spiked paddle as he advances on Harleen, who pleads for his old self, asking what happened to the man that was funny. A lot, actually. Scott Snyder, the Suicide Squad movie, probably a third thing that's also two words beginning with S. Handing over a mirror.
Mirror!
She says he now more resembles those sad clown masks that he hated so much at the beginning of issue 1, trying too hard to get a laugh, and the standard Joker in the reflection seems to agree. But nuts to that noise, Big Head Jay believes he's the same as ever and probably even funnier, and he'll prove it by doing something he'd only previously joked about in his pre-mask days. Atop GCPD headquarters, Gordon is telling Bats and Bullock about how serious things seem to have become with the green-faced clown as Calloway makes his return, now with a file with his years of research into the mask that he withheld to protect his fellow officers. Idiotic reasoning, but at least he's finally doing something! So I imagine his dossier will be invaluable to... And Batman already knows everything in the file. Of course he does. He was only comatose for half a week before doing a back Google search for magical green-faced psychos. Even when he tries to be helpful, Calloway manages to be 100 steps behind. Is he anything like this in the Mask comics? Calloway will only give up the information on removing the mask if he's part of the capture. Or until the Dark Knight says he hasn't got time for this kind of nonsense, at which point the lieutenant confesses only the wearer can remove it. Unless, I guess, they're a quadruped. But it's time to start evacuating the city, as Joker has prepped an enormous bomb, complete with Skull and Bones launch button, and Harley, Ivy, and Jessica tied and gagged to the weapon. So he's a reality TV star that's emotionally unstable, declined in quality, is delusional about his state of being, and decides to take it out on the audience and anyone that supported him. I guess what I'm saying is we have a new candidate for the 2020 presidential election! The final issue sees Batman grasping Joker by the vest, but he's in hysterics over Big Head grabbing Batsy's ears. One thing I'll note about these covers, they give you a general feel for what's going on without actually spoiling anything. Joker begins his series finale by introducing the 50-megaton Bob, a thermonuclear warhead straight out of the Air Force. But he'll wait until prime time to detonate. Not sure why he didn't just conjure a bomb, but whatever. Police snipers are trained on him, but Gordon doesn't want to provoke the madman. Calloway leaves to try and stop him. "You said he couldn't be stopped." "Maybe I was wrong." Well, considering he's been nothing but wrong in keeping important information to himself, that'd be pretty consistent. Meanwhile, Joker's hostages have mysteriously lost the tape over their mouths, for some reason. Maybe so Harley can again plead that this isn't Joker's style, despite Ivy's pointed disagreement. Big Head Joker says his old self is gone for good, then morphs through several new iterations, each of which Harley finds some fault with, be it looking like something out of the Matrix, or a 40s-era gangster, a cyborg. However, she does warm up to the idea of the Batman Beyond style look. An upstanding, law-abiding teenager has a chance encounter with the older Joker, who then grooms him to become the clown prince of crime of the future! Hey, Cartoon Network's greenlit worse. The Batwing soars by, netting Joker, who's tearfully glad his nemesis is alive, then is promptly slammed against a building and gets sucked into the turbines, which one would think would cause serious damage to the plane, but it doesn't seem to. After a brief gag where Mr. J is dressed like a certain mild-mannered reporter, holding what Lois Lane would have been if she'd been New 52 the same way Starfire was, has become Super Joker on the following splash page. I know it's just done for a gag, but in order for this to work, it almost seems like Joker would have to know Superman's alter ego. And it wouldn't be that far-fetched when you think about it, especially if you consider how long it was theorized that he already knew Batman's identity. The Jade Jester catches up with the plane and begins tearing up its chassis, only for Batman to eject before detonating his ride. Non-lethal given his new abilities, but Harley is less than convinced. For some reason. "I always knew you was a murderer, you stinky bat!" If she really believes that, I wonder if she's going to ask him on a date in a couple minutes. Probably not, since Super J knocks pointy ears back with his sight gag vision, much to Quinn's joy. Now her attitude has changed. Magic mask or no, she'll take Joker any way she can get him. Some people have taken that attitude with Cassandra Cain ever since she reappeared. I am not one of those people. Calloway appears, brandishing a shotgun and ordering Joker to take the mask off. The clown again berates the police use of guns, which feels super redundant, then blasts it in two with his I-beams while also hitting the cop. Bats climbs back onto the roof where the two do battle, with Mr. J delivering a decisive oversized boxing glove punch, declaring himself the winner. But the Caped Crusader tells him he isn't the Joker. The real deal wouldn't go for the spectacle of an oversized bomb or pander to people who just like big kabooms. He was sick, but he was also original. "Sometimes the Joker was even funny. You, not even close." When Jokehead says he's funnier than ever, another voice intercedes. "You're funny like Killer Croc is a Mensa graduate." Mensa isn't a school, last I checked. It's a global organization for people with high IQs. You can no more graduate from them than you can Toys for Tots. I guess the joke could be that if he'd been a member of Mensa, that's still in school, but I'm reading too far into this joke, aren't I? I've heard of split personalities, but this is ridiculous. The normal Joker's head pops out, the source of new derision to the lime-domed louse. "You know what your problem is? You got so busy telling us how funny you are, you forgot the jokes!" I know he's saying this to the mask, but I can think of so many others this applies to. Anyway, the legit Joker breaks from the surface enough to pull the mask off, and he's back to his old self, just in time to get decked by the Batman, who admits to lying to get the mask off, specifically about the Joker ever being funny. When he reaches for the artifact again, police snipers shoot it away, ordered to go for his hands if he tries again. You'd think they'd go for his head after all his recent crimes, but whatever. Mr. J settles for detonating the warhead, and Harley is content enough that she'll die with her man as he falls on a giant button.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Turns out Kellaway was saving all his usefulness for cutting the wires to the bomb. Sheesh, how useless does he have to act before doing something more complicated like driving or operating a lawnmower? It's not long before Harley and Joker are in handcuffs, and she tells him that he only had a bad day. It takes a moment, but it sinks into Mr. J that she has a point, and tomorrow's another day and another chance at mayhem. After Bullock gets some wedgie revenge, Kellaway is leaving in a taxi, with an exchange between Batman and Gordon telling us that he should know better than anyone how to deal with the mask.
Yeah, because that totally sounds like Batman. He encounters an unassuming source of unlimited magical power and lets a guy that did exactly one useful thing walk off with it. It's not like Bats would ever want to keep it secured himself because he'd know it was secure. That'd be as crazy as him having a contingency plan in case one of his buddies wants to take over the world with their superpowers. Why is Batman letting him go away with the mask?
The comic ends in the Edge City Cemetery, at the dug-up grave of Stanley Ipkiss. Kellaway places the mask in the arms of the yellow-suited skeleton, and tells both Stan and Big Head to rest in peace before he reburies them.
Because I guess fire or a sledgehammer wouldn't have been a smarter option? Anyway, that was Joker Mask. It was mostly enjoyable, and I didn't feel totally lost because I never read a Mask comic. Though, yeah, there's the whole thing with Kellaway not really doing much.
The art lent itself to a certain level of exaggeration, but I think it was done in a style evoking squash and stretch animation, which totally makes sense when the wearer can create something from thin air or use their vocalizations as offensive weapons. There were a couple of fun references, one to Batman the Animated Series, and to another franchise, Sam and Max. On a technical level, I couldn't find many mistakes. Joker's gloves kind of switch between orange and white, but that's about it. Characterizations felt mostly on point, though I personally felt there was slang in Joker's dialogue that kind of felt off, but hey, maybe that's just me. Bats doesn't feature much, but that's fine because this isn't really a story about him. Shocking, I know.
I do wonder if Jessica Platinum or anyone else working for those TV studios that willingly showed the Joker's antics would be arrested for aiding and abetting a criminal. I imagine they could say that they felt threatened for their lives, but then again, a bunch of people were injured or died, and a lot of havoc was caused, so I don't know how well that would fly in court.
Throughout the story, Harley kind of felt all over the place. She blames herself for her man succumbing to an exceedingly powerful alter ego when he'd already been tempted by it, independent of her opinion. Then she wants him back to how he was. Then she'll take him however she can get him. You could try blaming all that on her fixation on the Clown Prince of Crime, but it really just comes off as unfocused.
The story does bring up a couple of things I find very interesting. One is that the Joker as himself is far funnier than a version with superpowers taking things to the extreme. Also funnier than latter-day versions in the comics, or film, or... Anyway, there's also an intriguing parallel drawn between him and Batman.
Both are more or less normal guys. They just happen to be very intelligent, clever, and resourceful. When given powers beyond those of mortal men, they begin losing themselves. This was characterized for Batman when he became addicted to venom, and that was before Bane was ever created, or when he gained Superman's powers. Only in Joker's case, it's more about the art of comedy than the art of dislocating a mugger's shoulder.
The other takeaway is this dynamic they show between Harley and Joker that's much more affectionately reciprocated than in more recent iterations in the last several years. Frankly, I prefer them in here, but that's probably a discussion for another time. Overall, you might get a kick out of this story, even if you aren't a Mask fan, but it isn't without some logical plot holes. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.